He describes how this bell took him to the river, which I believe in Southern Baptist circles involves some kind of salvation, but clearly not here. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John, his name is Andy. Richard belongs to Jane, and Jane belongs to yesterday. How can I go on when every alpha particle hides a neon nucleus? More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to. Andy, what have you got for us today?
We are going to be finally checking out a band that I know I've mentioned to you in the past, and I think has come up pretty recently in some exchanges on one of our previous videos with our listeners out there. And that is a band, Little Feat. Now, you've heard of them, but I don't know, have you heard any of their music before?
No, I haven't.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, then I will present to you a very famous track by them. It is called Dixie Chicken. So, it sounds delicious, doesn't it? But yes, Little Feat, Dixie Chicken.
Okay, I shall go off and give it a listen.
Excellent.
I've seen the bright lights of Memphis and the Commodore Hotel.
Yeah, really good start. So you've got this syncopated beat, with the bass kicks in as well. You've got this sort of powerhouse piano, and then a sort of growling slide guitar. It instantly made me think of like the New Orleans sound. Limited exposure to it, but like Professor Longhair, people like that. But more for me, Dr. John and his Gumbo album, which I absolutely adore. It's one of my favorite albums ever, and it has this same sort of sound to it, which I really, really like. Yeah, it just pulls you in effortlessly straight away, and your man starts singing. He's got the voice to match as well, and so it's got this lovely sort of laid back groove that just pulls you in. Wonderful. Yeah, sounds really good. He's already said he's in Memphis, so we're getting an area as well. Good stuff.
Beneath the street lamp, I met a southern belle. Well, she took me to the river where she cast her spell. And in that southern moonlight, she sang the song so well. If you be my Dixie, I'll be your Tennessee lamb. And we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. Yeah, well, we made all.
Right, so he said that she took him down to the river, which in sort of, Baptist circles means salvation. I don't think it's that kind of salvation here, though. But it says she sings her song, which is "If You'll Be My Dixie Chicken," and I'll be your Tennessee Lamb. I think it is. So she's singing to him. So it's actually the narrator who's the Dixie Chicken, and not the woman. Which very different mental image of the desirable poultry. I suspect, I don't know what Tennessee Lamb is, if it's just made up or if it's a particular thing, but I suspect that she isn't quite as submissive as the lamb suggests. And they go walking together in Dixieland. I'm sure that's a euphemism. And then we got a bit of a boogie woogie, as Mr. Holland would say afterwards. And there was something sort of quacking away in my right channel that was like an approximation of a saxophone sound, but without the readiness. I don't know if it was like a synth or a part or something, but yeah, it's all good. Yeah, this obviously it's great because it's got that sort of New Orleans type sound to it, and it's also got very funny narration so far. Anyway, I do fear for the man here. He seems to be the one is the rabbit in the headlights, really. But we'll see.
My money flowed like wine, and then I low down southern whiskey began to fog my mind, and I don't remember to spell the money I put down on the white picket fence and boardwalk of the house at the edge of town. Oh, but boy, do I remember the strain of her frame. And the nights we spent together, and the way she called my name. If you be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, well, it's been a
Yeah, I forgot to, we've got the chorus again. It's great. I forgot to say the female vocals coming in there is really, really cool as well. Adds another sort of layer to it. Not just in terms of the overall sound of the track, but in the narration as well. And when the slide guitar sort of really start coming into that chorus more than the first one, now the other side out is sort of is noodling away these notes, and then one of the female vocals starts mimicking it. I was parroting it. And I wonder if it's harmony or if it's mocking. It could be either, because in that previous verse, he basically sounds like he blew his wad, got pissed, blew all his money as well. Oh dear. A not uncommon tale.
Yeah, well, it's been a year since she ran away. Yes, that guitar player sure could play. She always liked to sing along. She could always hand it with the song. Then one night in the lobby, yeah, of the Commodore Hotel, I chanced to meet a bartender who said he knew her well. And as he handed me a drink, he began to hum a song, and all the boys at the bar began to sing along. If you be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in
Slow fade out till dawn. Yeah, I really like that. It's just sort of sound that I really appreciate. And again, you got that. I think he said 12 months later and she's buggered off. I heard something about guitar player, so that may be her next objective. And so he's commiserating at the bar at the same hotel, the Commodore, I think he said. And the bartender says, "Oh yeah, I know her." Um, and then some other guys all start singing her song, so they've all heard her song as well, as it were. Uh, it kind of put me in mind a bit of Betty Coltrane, the Nick Cave song, but without the gunplay and the violence and the exploding heads, which is thankfully. And I did like that harmonica coming in at the end. The guitar sounds great, the vocals sound great, everything sounds great, but that piano is just brilliant. I absolutely love it, and there's this incessant groove to this, which just is completely infectious, takes you away. Yeah, this is wonderful stuff. I've heard of Little Feat before, but I've never listened to them, and clearly I should have done, because I think Andy mentioned before how much I'd like them, and he was right. So let's find out a bit more about them and what of their records I need to snaffle up immediately. So let's go back and chat it up with Andy.
All right, so you've returned from the land of Dixie, John, on your little feet. What did you make of it?
Yeah, not quite Los Polos Hermandos. But yeah, so it starts with this infectious syncopated beat that has the feel of like someone strutting down Main Street. If you add into the mix this tinkling barrel house piano and sort of growls of this CD slide guitar, it becomes more like sashaying down the boulevard.
Mhm.
Instantly, this makes me think of a sort of New Orleans sound, Professor Longhair, James Booker et al., but particularly Dr. John
Mhm.
and his Gumbo album, which is one of my all-time favorite records. You listen to
Yep.
track off there, back on into the music. This has got a similar groove, and the singer wastes no time in joining in. He goes on about he's seen the bright lights of Memphis at the Commodore Hotel, and underneath a street lamp, he met a Southern belle,
Mhm.
which again, straight away under a street lamp, eh? Yeah. This has a really wonderful laid back quality that kind of pulls you along effortlessly, just as if you were floating down the Mississippi River on a raft with a casual racist. He describes how this bell took him to the river, which I believe in Southern Baptist circles involves some kind of salvation, but clearly not here. The siren casts a spell on our plucky protagonist with the words, "If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb. And we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland." So the titular Dixie chicken is in fact her referring to the lucky victim and not the lady in question. And I must confess, I had a different mental picture when I thought that the woman was the desired poultry. I do confess I don't know what a Tennessee lamb is. Sounds delicious. Sort of, baby sheep and oxycodone. I don't know. But I suspect she is not as submissive as her little ditty implies. So this course is great, and with these female vocals added in, it adds not only to the feel of the song, but also to the narrative as well. So we exit the chorus for a few bars of glorious boogie woogie, led by the piano, and there's something approximating a sax sound in the right channel, but it's readless. So I don't know if it's some sort of synth, keyboardy kind of sound or whatever, but it's sort of croaking away like a bullfrog, sounding great.
Mhm.
The adventure continues for our narrator as he starts dropping booze and coinage all over town, and the whiskey starts to cloud his mind. We've all been there. But he's still holding on to that siren's promise of the chorus, and I do fear for him at this point. This time, this like we get back to that sort of refrain from her, and this time the slide guitar begins to extemporize, and out of the chorus is joined by a voice parroting its notes. And I do wonder whether it's an illustration of harmony or mockery, which would make sense given the narration. The next verse, it appears to be 12 months on, and our Southern Belle has legged it. There's mention of a guitar player. Perhaps he was her next objective. In that same Commodore Hotel, our hero wanders in, and the bartender says he also knows her. This is getting a little bit reminding me of Betty Coltrane by Nick Cave, thankfully without the gunplay and exploding heads. But as all the blokes in the bar join in singing her song because they know all the words as well. She gets around our Tennessee lamb, Dixie chicken, whatever you want to call her. I'm not sure about the chicken. It sounds to me like he's been done up like a kipper. Um, Although Dixie Kipper doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? We get one more rollicking chorus, followed by the guitar and vocalization with added harmonica, which is really nice. Sounds great. And then the party slowly fades to oblivion. This has a fantastic vibe to it. The narrative is an added bonus, especially as half the time I haven't a clue what Dr. John's singing about. I just really like it anyway. Yeah, I love this. It's clear I should have been listening to this for a long time ago. It's right up my street. Yeah, it's wonderful stuff.
Yeah, this is like it's so much it's at such a level now where I don't even know if it qualifies to being called a cult classic. But this band is a very interesting one, as I'll get into, that probably could have and should have been even bigger than they accomplished. You know, they should have reached heights greater than where they did. But yeah, really glad you liked it. It's obvious. I mean, how could you not? I should have given this to you back on fucking Into the Music when it was on my list then. That's how long. I think maybe even in that episode of Dr. John, I may have brought up Little Feat because I know we've talked about it back and
I think you
forth.
did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, this has been in the hopper for a long time, so I'm glad that somebody commented and it kind of like reminded me, oh shit, hey, go back into so much of my stuff I try to pull from more recently because like the chances of you knowing this song are just as great, if not better, than me knowing this song because of when it came out. So I should start going back deeper into the log for older stuff too, so long as you haven't heard it, obviously. But yeah, Little Feat is an American rock band formed in Los Angeles in 1969 by lead vocalist and guitarist Lowell George, bassist Roy Estrada, formerly both of Mothers of Invention, and keyboardist Bill Payne and drummer Richie Hayward. The band's classic lineup, in place by late 1972, consisted of George, Payne, Hayward, bassist Kenny Gradney, guitarist and vocalist Paul Barrere, and percussionist Sam Clayton. Singer and guitarist Lowell George met keyboardist Bill Payne and George when George was a member of Frank Zappa's Mothers of Invention. They formed Little Feat in 1969 along with former Mothers bassist Roy Estrada and drummer Richie Hayward from George's previous band, The Factory. The name of the band came from the comment made by Mother's drummer Jimmy Carl Black about Lowell's little feet. And the spelling of feet, in this case, they changed it to F-E-A-T, was an homage to the Beatles, who did the same with that name. So, Little Feat. There are, which really just sounds like very small accomplishments, which is what
Yes.
I always thought it was.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
because I'll forget later on. So there was a lot of interplay between Captain Beefheart, the Magic Band, and Mothers of Invention. I know that they were friends and stuff, but I don't know much about it. Did Frank Zappa treat his band better than Beefheart treated his band? Or was
I
there animosity?
I I think that they were both interesting characters behind both of those, musical, vessels or whatever you want to call them. But the I would probably say somewhat. But I mean, there's an anecdote coming up that kind of sheds a little bit of light on how Frank ran things. But I don't know if this anecdote is evidence or enough evidence to be like this is how he treated all of his musicians or whatever. So the possibilities there. I mean, it's worth looking into. But I
Well,
didn't
will
come
that
across anything.
encourage them to then go off and form Little Feat because he was dictatorial,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
Beefheart really was.
exactly, exactly. So I'm inclined to say there's probably some of that there as well, in Mothers of Invention and Zappa when they work together. So there are, and here we're going to get into it. There are two stories about the genesis of Little Feat. One has it that Lowell George showed Zappa his song Willin', and that Zappa fired him from the Mothers of Invention because he felt that George was too talented to merely be a member of his band, and told him that he ought to go away and form his own band. The second version says that Zappa fired him because Willin' contains drug references, weed, whites, and wine. Lowell George often introduced the song as the reason he was asked to leave the band. On October 18th, 1975, at the Auditorium Theater in Rochester, New York, while introducing the song, Lowell George commented that he was asked to leave the band for writing a song about dope. In any version, Zappa was instrumental in getting Lowell George and his new band a contract with Warner Brothers Record. So there is that. The
Okay.
eponymous first album was delivered to Warner Brothers and was recorded mostly in August and September of 1970 and was released by January of 71. When it came time to record Willin', Lowell George had hurt his hand in an accident with a model airplane, of all things. So Ry Cooder sat in and played the song's slide part. Lowell George's accident is referenced on the cover of the band's 1998 album Under the Radar. Willin' was was re-recorded with Lowell George playing the slide for Little Feat's second album, Sailin' Shoes, which was also the first Little Feat album to include cover art by Neon Park, who had painted the cover for Mother's Weasels Ripped My Flesh. Park continued to provide surrealist art for all of Little Feat's album covers until his death in 1993. The first two albums received nearly universal critical acclaim, and Willin' became a standard subsequently popularized by its inclusion on Linda Ronstadt's album Heart Like a Wheel. Despite good reviews of Sailin' Shoes, lack of commercial success led to the band splitting up, with Estrada leaving to join Captain Beefheart's Magic Band, although he has given other reasons for quitting the band, such as to get away from the Los Angeles pollution and LA city life. In 1972, Little Feat reformed with bassist Kenny Gradney, who were replacing Estrada. The band also added a second guitarist in Paul Barrere, who had known George since they were attended Hollywood High School in California, and percussionist Sam Clayton, and as a result, the band had expanded from a quartet to a sextet. Both Barrere and Clayton added vocals on many songs, although all the band members provided backing vocals in various tunes. The new lineup radically altered the band's sound, leaning toward New Orleans funk. The group recorded Dixie Chicken in 1973, one of the band's most popular albums, which incorporated New Orleans musical influences and styles, as well as Feats Don't Fail Me Now, their album in 1974, which was a studio recorded attempt to capture some of the energy of their live shows. The name of the latter album pays homage to a Fats Waller song. In 1973, Payne, Gradney, Barrere, Clayton, and Lowell collaborated with jazz drummer Chico Hamilton on his Stax album, Chico the Master, which is a strong showcase of the band's leanings toward funk and R&B. In 73, Little Feat backed Kathy Dalton on her amazing album on the Discreet label produced by Warner Brothers. Due to disappointing sales, the band disbanded a second time in late 1973, and Payne joined the Doobie Brothers and Hayward joined Ike Turner. They reformed in 1974, releasing their fourth album, Feats Don't Fail Me Now, which I mentioned a moment ago, just later that year. Also in 74, Lowell George, along with the Meters and other session musicians, backed Robert Palmer on his Island Records debut solo release, Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley, which opened with George's Sailing Shoes. The whole band chipped in on Palmer's 1975 release, Pressure Drop, which contained another George composition, the song Trouble. In March of 76, Little Feat served as the backing band on the first side of Akiko Yano's debut album, Japanese Girl, released on the Philips label. The band remained based in Los Angeles due to doing session work on the side in addition to band activities. The release of the last record album in 1975 signaled another change in the Little Feat sound, with Barrere and Payne developing an interest in jazz rock. Prior to the recording of the last record album, drummer Richie Hayward had a motorcycle accident, and the liner of the LP release of the last record album was decorated with copies of his many hospital bills. Also present was evidence of a late change to the running order tracks. The lyrics for Barrere's song High Roller were printed on the sleeve, but scored out with the words maybe next time scrawled over them. And sure enough, High Roller was the first track on the subsequent album, Time Loves a Hero. Lowell George continued to produce the albums, but his songwriting contributions diminished as the group moved into this jazz fusion sound, a style in which he had little interest. In August of '77, Little Feat recorded a live album from gigs at the Rainbow Theatre in London and Listener Auditorium in Washington, D.C. This album, Waiting for Columbus, is considered by many rock music critics to be one of the best live albums of all time, despite the fact that significant portions of George's vocals and slide work were overdubbed later in the studio. It was released in 1978, by which time it had become apparent that George's interest in the band was waning, as was his health. Little Feat began working on a new album, Down on the Farm, before disbanding in 1979. At this time, Warner Brothers released George's only solo album, Thanks, I'll Eat It Here, for which he had signed a contract in 1975. The album was mostly a collection of cover versions of that George had been working on as a side project for several years. While touring in support of that solo album in June of 1979, at the age of only 34, George collapsed and died in his hotel room in Arlington, Virginia. An autopsy determined the cause of death was a heart attack. In an interview with Bill Flanagan, conducted 11 days before his death, Lowell George made it clear that he felt that the demise of Little Feat was due to his having allowed the band to be run democratically, with the result that Payne, and to a lesser extent Barrere, had a presence as songwriters and in production which was disproportionate to their abilities. Lowell George was particularly scathing about Payne's attempts at jazz fusion. In the same interview, George said that he planned to reunite Little Feat without Payne and Barrere. So the surviving members finished and released Down on the Farm in late '79. As you probably deduced on your own, this track, Dixie Chicken, is the title track from the band's third studio album. The album is considered their landmark album, with the title track as their signature song that helped further define the Little Feat sound. It was voted number 563 in Colin Larkin's all-time Top 1000 Albums, third edition. The title track was released as a single by Warner Brothers. In March of '73 in the United States, it was backed with Lafayette Railroad, and in February of '75 in the UK, it was backed with Oh Atlanta. Dixie Chicken wasn't an overnight success, but its fame grew after subsequent albums, namely million-selling live LP Waiting for Columbus, which I mentioned earlier. It gained new fans hungry to hear Little Feat's earlier material. Once momentum was in Little Feat's favor, Dixie Chicken became easy pickings for rock radio. It still hooks in listeners to this day because it's a Los Angeles-based band's earnest exploration of the great Southern music to come out of Memphis and New Orleans, highlighted by George's slide guitar solo and the backing vocals of roots rock icons Bonnie Raitt and Bonnie Bramlett. Raitt, Emmylou Harris, and Jesse Winchester joined Little Feat during a '77 episode of the Midnight Special for a proto-jam band rendition of Dixie Chicken that captures the song's jazzy appeal even better than its classic studio version. So with that said, If you really like this, go find it because it's out there. It's on YouTube. I was this close to giving it to you, but I thought I'd be a traditionalist. But it's a great live performance, and I mean, Bonnie Raitt's in there, and so is Amy Lou Harris. So there you go. Um, let's jump into these lyrics. I've seen the bright lights of Memphis and the Commodore Hotel, and underneath a street lamp I met a Southern belle. Well, she took me to the river where she cast her spell, and in that southern moonlight she sang a song so well. If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. Well, we made all the hot spots. My money flowed like wine. Then that low down southern whiskey began to fog my mind. And I don't remember church bells or the money I put down on the white picket fence and boardwalk on the house at the edge of town. Oh, but boy, I do remember the strain of her refrain, the nights we spent together, and the way she called my name. If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. Well, it's been a year since she ran away. Yes, that guitar player sure could play. She always liked to sing along. She's always handy with a song. Then one night in the lobby, yeah, of the Commodore Hotel, I chanced to meet a bartender who said he knew her well. And as he handed me a drink, he began to hum a song, and all the boys there at the bar began to sing along. If you'll be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb, and we can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. Oh, oh, oh. Yeah, this is, I mean, it's just a fucking fabulous story, right? Like, there's no question about, the what took place. And it's so easy to follow and funny and clever and unfortunate lot for the men involved who fell into her snare. Her running off with a guitarist it's just like perfect icing on the cake, her next victim or whatever. He'll probably find himself a year later at the Commodore Hotel drowning his sorrows and commiserating with a group of gentlemen who went down the same road. But yeah, it tells of a visitor to the Commodore Hotel who goes from thinking he's met the love of his life to pouring his broken heart out to a bartender. And they soon learn that other barflies at the hotel had been let down by the same potential suitor. And according to co-writer Martin Kibbe, billed as Fred Martin, Lowell and I had been up all night trying to write a song. And we met at the Ace Screen Door Factory down in Laurel Canyon. As I was leaving, there was a chicken place with a sign that said Dixie Chicken. Kibbe later recalled in an interview he'd been playing the damn thing all night long, and he imitates the riff, which was going through my brain. And by the time I got home, I'd written this song. And when I came back the next morning to the rehearsal hall at the Warner Brothers soundstage, I went, I've got it, I've got it. And they all looked at me like, please, you're kidding. And there you have it. And the song was born. So, yeah, man, some really fun Americana-y type, classic Southern rock sounding music written by a bunch of cats from LA, interestingly enough. So, but yeah. I'm really glad you like this, man. You should absolutely go check this out, the album. And if you like it, maybe some of their other stuff as well. They did, as I explained, kind of change their sound a little bit, but they're a really, really good band. A lot of people wish they had kind of stuck with this sound, though, especially with Lowell George's slide guitar capabilities. It just lends itself so much to that kind of sound. But yeah, really glad you like this one, John. Thanks for giving it a go, bud.
Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you think of this track, Dixie Chicken by Little Feat. If you are familiar with it, your thoughts. If it's new to you, would love to, as the whole reason we do this is our first time hearing it and the other being able to share in that experience. If this is your first time listening to this, please shout out down below what you thought of it, what you made of it. If there's anything that reminded you of contemporaries around that time. Obviously some interesting connections with the Zappa and, all the other stuff going on here. So yeah, really interesting stuff. Love to hear what you guys have to say. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. Thank you so much in advance. And hopefully, John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.